What's going on, everyone? Scott here. Welcome back to the channel. So, Michigan State football finally gets to the win column in the last game of the season with a 38-28 win against Maryland at Ford Field. And look, this was a game, an offensive packed game, and a game in which neither team really wanted to play any defense outside of the first quarter and a half. But this game also proves to be the end of the Jonathan Smith era here in East Lansing, and we'll get to all of that a little later on. But first, want to talk about this game. But first, before we do jump in, if you could just hit that like and subscribe button down there. We'll have more Michigan State football content on the channel, so just make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video. So, just really jumping into this game, kind of saying that half true, half not true about the defense. And I do have to give credit to Michigan State's defense. I mean, well, yes, the yards, especially through the air, don't look fantastic, but they did make some fairly big plays, including the end of the game, which we'll kind of get to that sequence, kind of that last drive here in a minute. But first, with Maryland, you have to give credit to Malik Washington. I mean, 38 for 61. You heard that right. 61 pass attempts in a four-quarter game. Not going to overtime, not anything. They kind of essentially, they were just dropping back and passing every single time once we got to a certain point in the game. But 459 yards, 3 touchdowns, did have an interception, that game sealer at the end of the game that Michigan State was able to get. Rushing the ball, as we said, Malik Washington, quarterback for them, had the most rush attempts, 7 of them for 18. 5 carries, 452 yards for DeJuan Williams. He had a touchdown on the night as well. Receiving the ball, 8 catches for Shalik Knotts, 139 yards and a touchdown. 2 touchdowns for Jalil Farouk with 10 catches, 110 yards to go with those 2 touchdowns as well. 7 for 77 for Caleb Webb, 7 for 69 for DeJuan Williams. So they were doing their damage through the air. On defense, Jalen Husky, 9 total tackles, half a tackle for loss. 1 tackle for loss for Daniel Wingate. He was kind of all over the field for them. Trey Riddick and Jamar Glasker. Sidney Stewart as well with a full tackle for loss, half tackle for loss for Cam Wright. Shout out to the Michigan State offensive line, though. 0 sacks allowed in this one. I believe I saw on Twitter afterwards that was the first time since the Youngstown State game that 0 sacks had been allowed. So, I mean, showing up the last game of the year for sure. The Michigan State offensive line, was it perfect? No, but and also credit to the offensive line with a lot of moving pieces. Obviously, the leader Matt Goldman, center for Michigan State, wasn't able to go in this one, and the guys that stepped in there, obviously a reworked offensive line, given injuries and whatnot throughout the season, they really stepped up in this one. And then also credit to Alessio for being able to escape and make plays, because they were able to get to the backfield, a few of them, but Alessio was able to get out, but the offensive line was able to give him enough time to make plays and whatnot. And that'll kind of lead us right into the Michigan State side of things. And we have to start here with Alessio. I mean, 27 for 39, 292 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. I mean, just an incredible game for Alessio. He's looked solid in his start since he kind of took over, the role the second half of the season with, Aiden Childs getting banged up and whatnot. And, the staff looking for kind of a spark. And Alessio, for the most part, has looked solid in pretty much all of his starts. And this was kind of the Mona Lisa of all of those. I mean, just looked absolutely and completely controlled. Obviously, the 0 sacks helped, but really see what he can do sticking in there as well, maybe when he was pressured, still being able to deliver the ball, which we've seen throughout his time starting, throughout this last half of the season. But then rushing the ball, more credit to the offensive line. Was it perfect again? No, but hard running from Elijah Tolliver, who, again, really second half of the season, coming out strong, playing his best football, 13 carries, 95 yards. Brandon Tullis as well, tough running, 9 carries for 46 yards. Bryson Williams getting really some of his first action, carry for 14 yards. And then receiving, Nick Marsh, obviously coming back home to Detroit, playing in this game, 7 catches, 85 yards and a touchdown, 5 catches, 76 yards. Omari Kelly, including a big 46 one that he was kind of able to take outside, go inside. But Nick Marsh, Omari Kelly, I mean, obviously it sucks kind of the way the year went, because I think those are 2 guys, obviously, we'll continue to say that Nick Marsh is a top 5 receiver in college football, and I believe he is. But Omari Kelly, too, as I said, I think he's an NFL-type guy, and, would have loved to see, kind of how this team and offense looked with a complete, with maybe a couple more pieces on offense and kind of a healthy year where things don't, go as bad as they did for as long as they did. and see them competing a little longer. But obviously, that sucks. But then Jack Velling, 5 for 68 and a touchdown as well. And he kind of had a last couple games here with Alessio as well. Krishan McCray, 2 for 24. Michael Masunas, 2 for 20. Thought he's had a solid season as well. And then Kai Rios, 1 catch for 1 yard and a touchdown, getting on the board, his first touchdown. And then you flip it to the defensive side. Aiden West, 8 tackles, half a sack. Jordan Hall, absolutely incredible, leading that defense, making big time plays. 6 tackles, half a sack, half tackle for loss. Quindarius Dunnigan got home for a sack as well. And two total sacks, tackles for loss on the night. And then obviously Avion Gross with that game-sealing interception there at the end. But then the story of the night, and I think one that we'll kind of remember for the season, and definitely a down season, 4-8, 1-8 overall. Was Alante Brown, and kind of a little bit of kind of where I was sitting at there in the stadium. We saw Alante Brown coming back. He's been banged up pretty much all this year, and kind of the last couple of years he's been banged up for a good amount of the year. But he comes back. He's captain for this game, his last collegiate game. He comes back. He's on the punt, kick return units, should I say? And he's kind of on the other side. Elijah Tout-Tolliver is the ball's going to Elijah Tout-Tolliver the other time. See Alante come to the bench. We were kind of sitting, behind the MSU bench in this one, and see him come, and you can tell it's like he just wants the ball. This is his last college game. Like wants a chance to get the ball. And obviously, if you know Alante Brown's story, obviously, everything off the field that he's gone through the last couple years, and then obviously the injuries that he's had to deal with the last couple years as well on the field. He just wanted the ball. He wanted a chance to make something of this last game, and he did exactly that. And the one time he touches the ball, gets the kickoff, gets the ball, takes it 92 yards to the house for a touchdown. Absolutely electric moment there, and he runs right on the sideline, runs over to. We were kind of sitting kind of in the middle section, and his family. I believe his fiance's family was over there. I think I saw too. He runs right over there and kind of just takes a minute, and was definitely emotional too, especially once you know like the stuff, like not just the on the field stuff, the off the field stuff, which I believe it was Graham Couch had the article, detailing everything that has gone on with him in his life, personal life, outside of the football field and all that. So definitely go check that out. But that was just the absolute feel good moment of the game for sure, and definitely one of the feel good moments of the entire season. But then kind of moving over to the team side of everything, third down, Maryland was fairly solid on third down, 9 for 16, 5 for 14 for MSU, 0 for 2 for Maryland, 1 for 1 for Michigan State, and it was a gutsy call at the end. I believe it was 4th and 7 near the goal line, the end of the game. That was the Omari Kelly game-sealing touchdown. 534 total yards for Maryland, 453 for Michigan State. 459 of those yards were through the air for Maryland, 292 for Michigan State. A little more balanced, I guess you could say. Both threw an interception on the night. 75 yards rushing, 161 for Michigan State. 8 penalties for 75 and 7 penalties for 50 yards for Michigan State. Definitely got a little chippy there. Had a blindside block, had a helmet ripped off, another blindside block. Whatever, things were definitely getting kind of chippy there, especially towards the end of the game. But one turnover for each. Both of them were an interception. 28-16 possession-wise for Maryland, 31-44 for Michigan State. Now, obviously, this kind of brings an end to the 2025 football season. Definitely one that was not close to what expectations were coming in. If you've been here on this channel since the beginning of the season, you know that I was more on board of 7-8 wins, and I think that's kind of where everyone was. I know some people were more like, okay, like just 6-6, maybe get a little spicy 7 wins, but I definitely thought that there was 7 wins on this roster and on this schedule. And I mean, you look at it, just the kind of couple of 50-50 ball bounces one way or another. Just those games that kind of everyone can agree on. Obviously, you look at Nebraska, you look at that game, and then you look at Minnesota. That's just 2 games right there that, hey, those things flip. That's 6 wins. You look at the Iowa win, hey, that's 3 wins. You're at 7 wins. 7 wins right there. But even the games that I think were were kind of more 50-50 than, probably ended up turning like a 65-70, 70-30, 35, Michigan State, kind of lost games. They talk about USC and talking about against that school down the road. I mean, those margins weren't that big where, one or two things go their way. Michigan State could have won those games. So it was definitely there on the field. But I do kind of like what Jonathan Smith said after the game. It's like, hey, yeah, we thought this isn't word for word, but essentially like obviously this wasn't good enough. We thought we need to be better, but you look at a couple games, two of the last 4 games you're leading in the last 2 minutes of the game, and can't get it done. So obviously not good enough. But the record is what the record is. Not here to say that, but just saying the opportunities were there to win 6, 7, even 8, football games from this thing. And as I said before, it's not like this is a depleted roster by any means. This roster needs to get deeper, no doubt, and get some difference makers at certain positions, but some more depth definitely. But this was a roster that I think definitely could have made that happen, and due to a couple bounces, couple weird coaching decisions throughout the year as well. Just unfortunately another bowlless season. Definitely kind of the worst I think of the last couple years, which is very disappointing. Obviously, overall 4-8, 1-8 in the Big Ten, and obviously there's no questions anymore about what's going to happen about the head coaching situation. Obviously, recording this, usually record these on Sunday night, and during the day on Sunday here, obviously we got the news: Jonathan Smith will not be returning as head coach of Michigan State, which was kind of for a while seemed like obviously like this has to happen. But then over the last week or so, it was like, okay, maybe this is not happening, but we kind of just need some answer. And we did get that answer. That they are letting Jonathan Smith go. He will no longer be the coach here, which I think, unfortunately, I'm not going to get too much into it here because we're going to have another video right after this talking about all that. But obviously, I've said all season how much I like Jonathan Smith, both as a person, and I think he can be a really good football coach. But I think, as I said, if you go 3-9, you go 4-8, 1-8 in the Big Ten, and it looks like this, and then kind of just the optics of everything. I think it was something that had to be done, unfortunately. And as I've said multiple times, I think Jonathan Smith never really got kind of a fair shot here because of the lovely section of the fan base that was just all in on Urban. And if it wasn't Urban, they weren't going to support Michigan State, which I don't think that really lives up to the fan of a program, a school that you root for. So I think that was unfortunate. He never got the full backing because unfortunately that wasn't just one crazy side of the fan base. That was also the donor base as well. They never had the full financial donor support. And unfortunately, and we saw that because it's documented he was in on players, on transfers, whatever, but, been documented that he was just outbid. And obviously some of that has to do with the financial backing. So, but as I said, don't want to get too much into that. We're going to have a separate video on that. Just kind of wanted to talk about this game. Michigan State sends their seniors out on a good note, 38-28. Feel for them because this obviously, it was important to them. You don't want to go 0 in the Big Ten. You don't want to go in losing 9 straight games to close your season. So I know that there probably will be quite a bit of turnover, obviously, with the seniors leaving on Omari Kelly, Jack Velling, guys like them on offense, and then defense as well. Guys like Wade Matthews, Malik Spencer, Amarion Smith, the guys on defense as well. Malcolm Bell, I think had a solid year, cornerback as well. But sending them out with the win, but then also the young guys that, hopefully stick around with the new coach as well. Setting them out on a good note as well, I think was important. And, just good to see kind of a feel-good moment there. And then, as I said, kind of the feel-good moment of the season with the Alante Brown kickoff return as well. That's probably right up there as the top feel-good moment, I think, of the season. But anyway, that'll do it for this one. If you watch any of these videos throughout the season, thank you for supporting and watching all season long. We'll be back for more Michigan State football stuff. As I said, we'll be back right after this with obviously the Jonathan Smith head coaching situation of all this. And then we'll be back with more, roster information. We've already got one person in the portal. I have to imagine that a couple more will be hitting the portal here in the coming days, but in coming weeks as we get into rest of December and into January. But anyway, that'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.